Recently, I had an experience with credit card fraud that caused so much unnecessary stress and anxiety. I spent hours on the phone and in chats with my credit card company. I had to get two different cards before the fraud stopped, and I was so worried about what was going to happen to my money in my bank account. And I sometimes have the fear that it's going to happen again, right? And that's why I'm so excited to introduce You Are the Healer's newest sponsor, Aura, an app for protecting online data and personal information. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access things like my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Protecting yourself and your personal information is a form of self-care, I swear. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/healer to get a 14-day free trial and have peace of mind knowing your information is safe. Again, that's aura, aura.com/healer for your 2-week free trial.
You Are the Healer is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is mandatory because there's absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help. I think every person who walks this earth needs therapy, honestly. I'm stoked to be connected with BetterHelp to offer affordable and accessible therapy resources. The link is in my show notes, and you can also go to betterhelp.com/healer. That's better, HELP.com/healer. Now let's get into this episode.
Hi, besties. Before we dive into the episode, I just want to provide a quick disclaimer. You Are the Healer is here for empowerment, storytelling, and those aha moments, but it is not a substitute for therapy, medical advice, or professional help. I'm sharing my experiences, education, and opinions to support you, not to diagnose you. Everything you hear on the show is for informational and educational purposes only. You are responsible for your own choices, healing journey, and how you apply what resonates. If you need deeper support, please reach out to a qualified professional that can support you on your healing journey. All right, disclaimers done. Let's dive into this episode. Welcome back to You Are the Healer. I'm so excited to announce our newest guest, my friend Morgan, onto the show. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on to You Are the Healer.
Absolutely. Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm like, who knows where this is going to go? There's so many things. There's so many things that I want to hit on. Usually when I have guests on, something I like to start with is, how did your mental health journey start? Like, what is your experience with your mental health so far in life?
Man, I feel like I've been just in the trenches for my entire life, but that's fine. We're making it somehow. I feel like when I was younger, it was really hard because I felt like we moved a lot. And so like finding a good group of friends, like no matter where I went, was really hard because I could be friends with everybody, but I didn't really find very many people that I liked in my circle only, if that makes sense. In high school, I feel like I was pretty depressed just because I feel like I was battling like a lot of inner trauma and inner turmoil in a plethora of ways. And I felt like I didn't have like the support or the comfort or the knowledge to really cope with those things in a healthy manner. And so therefore, I feel like I used negative coping mechanisms in order to really get through that aspect of my life. And then I feel like I went to college, kind of blossomed, and I was like, hey, I actually can do this if I just stick and ground myself throughout all of the ordeals of life. Now that's so much easier said than done.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
with like everything of life, And so in high school, I started therapy for like a really long time. I kind of went like therapist to therapist, but I liked that because I feel like every single therapist has different coping mechanisms and different intelligence scales to really learn off of. And so I feel like you resonate with a certain therapist in a certain way. And then once you learn what you need to learn from them, you can move on to the next one. At least that's been my experience with therapy. I tend to intellectualize a lot of my feelings. And so rather than feeling them somatically in my body, I intellectualize them. And I'm like, oh, well, I feel happy right now due to this, but I don't actually like feel it in my body. So I feel like a lot of my emotions have gotten like trapped a lot of the times. And then in college, I feel like I was still in therapy pretty aggressively. And then I feel like moving my body really implemented a lot of my like spiritual health and also my mental health journey, just because like the mind, body, and soul connection, I feel like is so real. And once you do have that connection, it's a lot easier to do things like healthy coping mechanisms, like meditation, journaling.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, actually, that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to touch on, so many things, and thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah, of course.
like starting from the beginning saying like, you know, you had a lot of depression growing up and using negative coping skills. I think that's such a unfortunately like relatable thing for a lot of people. Is like, you know, you
Absolutely.
feel bad and you want to feel better, but you don't quite know like healthy ways to feel better, especially when you're like young. And thank God
Yeah.
mental health is now something that people are talking about more. But like same thing,
Absolutely.
you know, with me, like I knew I felt like shit and I wanted to feel better and I only knew a handful of things that would make me feel
Yeah.
better. And unfortunately, they were all really harmful and negative. And so
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were able to get into therapy at a young age. And it's listening to you talk about how you intellectualize and being like, every therapist has something to offer. Like that to me like tracks so well. Like,
It really
oh,
does.
that's really funny to me.
I'm
But
kind of like a duality queen. Like you got positive and you got negative and you just mix them together, right? But I feel like that's
mhm.
every human. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's every human that is like not afraid to look at those parts of themselves and like actually
yeah.
integrate. That's another thing I want to talk about. Maybe we'll
Yes.
put a pin in it for like shadow
All
work
right.
and integrating
I
like all
was
the parts
literally
of
just gonna
yourself.
say
We'll put a
that.
pin in that. We'll put a pin in that. But going back to how you had a lot of therapists, I think that's such a like realistic part of a mental health journey is not just having one therapist your entire life, but like kind of shopping around for them and realizing, okay, I can learn
Yes.
this from this one. And then kind of like what you said, like when you've learned what you needed to from this person, you can move on to somebody else and like try out different people and modalities. And I think that that's such a real part of mental health that not a lot of people talk about because they're like, oh, I tried therapy and it was stupid. And it's like,
And it didn't work.
maybe you just didn't vibe with
Maybe it
that
was the
therapist.
therapist.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're a human. Like you could just have not
Yeah.
meshed. And so it's
And
important
it's
to like,
also like friendships too, right? Like I feel
mm-hmm,
like that therapy relationship, it can be such a trustful union between two
mm-hmm.
people who's like a complete stranger to you, but then like you're literally spilling the beans on your entire life, you know? And you're like,
Yeah.
hey, so by the way, this happened when I was 9 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
And
have
it
to
takes a
build that
lot.
foundation of trust, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. It takes a lot to build up to that trust, especially if you're not someone that like is used to talking about the hard things in your life. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to sit across the couch from a stranger and be like, here's everything. You know, it's kind of what you bring to it.
Yeah,
So having that
absolutely.
foundation of trust and kind of like what you said, like any relationship, like a friendship even, you wouldn't tell someone you just met. I mean, maybe you would, but typically you don't,
I
typically
probably
you
would.
don't, yeah, typically you don't tell.
I'm like, yeah, I'm fucked up, but here we are.
Yeah, mixed when I was 9.
Went through this thing. It's kind of why I'm like the personality hire everywhere I go.
Just an open book, every page.
Yeah, no, truly. I'm like this chapter 11, line 1.
So I'm thinking most people typically don't like open up right away to strangers. It's like you build that
Yeah,
foundation first and then you
yeah,
trust someone with that information and then you let them help you. And so that's why like you have to kind of persevere with therapy and certain therapists because like it takes a while sometimes for people to build up that comfortability talking about things. But then once you
yeah,
start talking about things, like it gets normal and I feel like the more times you tell a story about something that's happened to you, the less power it has over you,
yeah,
you know, and the easier it
absolutely.
gets. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I feel like you tend to store it in like a different part of your limbic system as well when you are constantly going back to the story because it's like, okay, you can find
Mm,
different nuances and you can find different ways that your body responded and you can find different ways of like, hey, maybe this happened due to this or it wasn't my fault at all, actually. Because I feel like
mm,
that tends to happen with a lot of people that go to therapy is like they think that this specific trauma is their fault or
mm,
whatever they've gone through is their fault. And I feel like they hold that guilt and that shame for a lot of
mm-hmm,
different pieces of that. And I feel like a
mm-hmm.
lot of therapy is really understanding and integrating your shadow side with your light side because you can't really have one without the other, you know?
Totally. So what helped you when you had those feelings of like it's my fault from any type of, you know, trauma? What helped you kind of overcome that and realize that it was not your fault at all, actually?
I feel like that is such a loaded question in so many ways because I feel like from a systemic standpoint, like we could talk about how from a systemic standpoint, a lot of women in general are cultivated to be more submissive or like less outgoing in their personality or less determined to get what they want because a lot of our society and at least our country and also in other countries as well. But specifically here, I feel like the narrative becomes like the nature versus nurture of how your parents raise you to an extent, right? But it's also from a systemic biasy as well, because I feel like we don't really raise kids with emotional intelligence, or we haven't in the past, you know? And so I feel like for me personally, I really had to learn my own emotional intelligence through my own education and through my own reading and through my own just personal belief systems and perspectives and realities. So I feel like what helped me was really, one, moving my body. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that exercise is so necessary for so many things.
Yeah, people hate to hear it.
They do. And I know, like, it sucks. Like, it hurts, you know? Like, sometimes you're sore as shit, but, like, going to the gym and really, like, focusing on maybe just, like, one specific event and be like, I have the power over myself. I have free will. And just because potentially someone took your free will away in some capacity, way, shape, or form, does not mean that you're intended to stay in that cycle for the rest of your life. I think that journaling and writing, like creatively writing, really helps me a lot. I wrote a lot of poetry, and I think getting my feelings out through those pieces was really helpful in taking my own power back. And I also think the support system with like my siblings and I are extremely close. Potentially trauma bonded, that's but like, aren't we all?
Yeah.
At this
especially
point, life
siblings,
is kind of trauma. So I feel like really working on myself just in every capacity via like mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical, and integrating all of those healing modalities into my life really allowed me to realize like, hey, maybe I have a savior complex and maybe we need to work on that.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to trust myself more with the decisions that I am making, so that way I don't make the same cycles repeat over and over and over again, and really introspect on myself of like, yes, this wasn't my fault, because naturally certain things don't happen to you because like the world's against you, you know? So I think changing the narrative in my mind really helps in a lot of ways. Getting it out of my mind helps in a lot of ways. Working through it via my body, like yoga and lifting and softball, just so many things, like using my voice for others as well and advocating for justice for other people, I feel like really helped me too, because my justice complex is just too insane sometimes. I wish it was a little bit less.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine the justice complex comes from like wanting other people, like preventing them from the pain that you experienced, you know? And I think that that's so like human and really admirable. And yeah, I can kind of suck like experiencing it inside of yourself, but like recognizing that where it comes from is like really genuinely wanting to help other people and keep them safe because like you had a negative experience. I think giving yourself that compassion of like the justice complex is coming from a good place, you know, like it's wanting to help, even if it's like kind of hard sometimes on you.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved what you said about like teaching yourself the emotional skills and regulation and stuff like that. That's something that I really had to do myself as well, because like that is not, I mean, maybe some people's families teach them. Like I got a little bit of like, here's how to calm down, you know, take some deep breaths.
Mine was like, go to your room.
Yeah, literally. Mine's like,
I'm like, I love my room.
I'm never leaving, actually.
No, seriously. They've had to like drag me by my hair out of my room.
Yeah. Well, and it's like our world is like specifically in America and our school system like does not teach emotional regulation, which is so fascinating because like emotions are literally part of the human experience. Like especially at a young age, like in kindergarten, we should be learning. Take a deep breath when you're upset, like pause, maybe go out in the hallway and pace a little and then come back in. Like we should be learning these things because from a very young age, your emotions are there. And like if you're not being taught how to regulate them, like you're just going to try anything to feel better, which usually is not like the most helpful thing. Yeah. So I love that you know, took the reins and like taught yourself, which I think a lot of people do. I know a lot of people that listen to my podcast, that's like literally what it's for. It's like, here's how to learn about how to take care of yourself because nobody else is doing it. You know what I mean? Like, and I
that's
just
amazing.
I just wish so badly that there was like this standardized education in our like elementary schools, you know, instead of putting the responsibility on to parents. Yeah.
Because it's hard, because if you think about it from like a scientific evidence standpoint, generational trauma gets carried down through the mother's womb. And that's been scientifically proven. So what my mom experienced, and then her mom experienced, and then her mom above her experienced, it's truly all of the lineage that you're trying to heal in like this one lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can look at that from a spiritual standpoint or a scientific standpoint, but it's like they obviously still have that generational trauma if you're still experiencing how they're
Exactly.
projecting it onto you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've come to the conclusion, like in my life, I will not be carrying that down. I will not be passing that down. So in order to do that, I'm going to work and heal myself in
Mm-hmm.
all of the plethora and multitudes of capacities that I have to heal myself, because there is no such thing as perfection. It's just an ideology that people try to live up to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's perspective and reality is different. So your perfect is different than my perfect, which is
Yep.
different from the next person's perfect. So, and
You're
also I
speaking
think
facts.
that, thank you, Queen. I also think it's correlated to your attunement as well. Like, if you're more attuned with your body, if you're more attuned with your mental space, if you're more attuned with your emotional intelligence from a younger age, then we would have such a better, more clear, more vital world from like a compassion standpoint and a kindness standpoint, because people would be like, oh, they're mad, but they're not actually upset at me. It's their own inner turmoil that they're fighting and projecting onto me instead. Or they're being defensive because I triggered a wound in them, but they're not able to recognize that wound yet.
Right.
So,
And like that language itself, even like listening to you say it, feels so like emotionally literate. Like you can tell that you've educated yourself on these things. And I'm just like, imagine if like I think of like how the average American has a 4th grade reading level. Like
no,
okay.
and like from a medical standpoint too, it's like a 5th grade reading level, like medical literacy. So it's like just everything, all of it needs to be better. All of it.
So
from a
okay,
systemic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I was also thinking like it's no surprise that there's this like huge lack of empathy in our world, specifically in America right now, when like emotional education and literacy is like non-existent. Like I I have a friend who her ex-boyfriend right before they broke up was like, "What is empathy? Like you always say that word, like I don't know what it means." Like he's like 30 years old, like he's an adult, and I'm like, okay, wow. You know, and
that's like
it's
the Webster dictionary.
Yeah, it's like wow, it's just like the lack of literacy when it comes to emotions is like I could go on a whole tangent about it, but I do want to circle back to I want to circle back to generational trauma because that is such a rich topic, and I myself feel like the way that I think about it is like a like generational curse breaker. Like have you ever read the ACOTAR series?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. When they call her curse breaker, that's kind of like how I feel with like my like ancestral trauma.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people, especially the people that take interest in healing and like all of those things, also feel similarly. They're like, I'm not going to pass down what was passed down to me. And so I'm curious, what work have you done to make sure that you're not passing things down? Like, how have you started to address like generational trauma in your life?
I think there's so many multitudes of aspects to generational trauma and trauma in general, right? I feel like we've discussed it already, like emotional intelligence, that's a huge one. Not having emotional intelligence just allows you to cycle into negative patterns, I think, and also not be able to introspect as well within yourself and realize that like things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. And I think people lack the ability to change their inner narratives when they don't have that emotional intelligence. From a spiritual standpoint, we were raised Christian, but I hated the church with everything.
I was like, I cannot imagine you in a church.
No, like literally step foot, fire, arson, immediate. Like that's not me. It's not my vibe. But from a very young age, we like went to Bible study and like went and did all these things and had Bible groups at our house and shit. And I would be like, hey, I want to not do this anymore.
Right.
Maybe, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like when you're raised in a household that's like, you need to do this and you need to do that with like religious standpoint things. I think it can become very debilitating because it limits your capacity for perspective in a lot of ways. Because it hones your perspective to be one specific way and following this one specific book that's been translated by like white men for like I don't know, millennial years, like billions and trillions of years, I don't know, and misinterpreted in so many capacities too. And then like people just find this hope in that religion, right? Probably around like age 14, I was like, hey, so like why do we follow men like this? Like why do the Abrahamic religions like focus so much so on repenting and being like, this is your sin and this is your sin and this is your sin and this is your sin, rather than accepting that, like, yes, you're going to have that duality of my shadow side and my light side, and the necessary integration for religion in general. I feel like it was created because I've taken a lot of religion classes, because it's always been interesting to me to just see how people find so much reconciliation in a religion, or like so much compassion and like hope in religion, because it's always seen from my perspective to be very controlling, very manipulative, very toxic, very back and forth, very politically biased, and very biased towards just humans in general. And like, if you look at Eastern medicine and Eastern religions versus Western medicine and Western Abrahamic religions, they are so vastly different in the ways that they look at life and the ways that they interpret life. And I think that also can attest to the fact that, like, the Western Abrahamic religions have been built based off of coercion, war, money, power, control, and colonialism, and basically constituting themselves over a minority group in a plethora of countries, in a plethora of ways. And so I think breaking out of that really helps me a lot, and like finding my own spiritual path, because I would say I'm more of an omnist than anything, which basically means I believe in a lot of things from a lot of different religions and a lot of different spiritual practices. Like, you could call me a witch, or you could call me pagan, or you could call me but like, at the end of the day, everyone's gonna want to title what you believe, and truly I think titling things puts you into the box. And in Greek, the word to understand actually means to confine. And so I think once we break out of that confinement and that box of titles that we just have to elaborate on in every capacity, I think that we can allow ourselves to break free from the control that the society from a systemic standpoint has placed on us. And honestly, right now, I feel like there's a really huge energetic, like, death of the soul going on, and I feel it very heavily, because a lot of people are waking up right now to their own spiritual power, to their own spiritual attunement, to their own body, mind, and soul, and integrating all of those things. And I think you can see that in the influx of mass diversity in the political realm, but also mass diversity in like the spiritual components and mental health components too, you know? I think it's becoming more clear which side people are on, but I also think that the division is also something that takes away from our internal selves, because I do believe that our energies are God consciousness, or goddess consciousness, or however you want to believe in that or resonate with that. Truly, like, we have it in ourselves to be these divine entities, but the Abrahamic religions take that away from us by saying you need to believe in this external power, right? So you're not necessarily looking within, you're looking externally of yourself in order to resonate with yourself internally. But you can't do that without the integration internally.
Right.
It's going to be biased to an extent. And so with spirituality, I feel like that has been a major component of my life, of taking back my own free will, my own control over my own life, and also really allowing me to like introspect on myself of like, okay, everyone is really a mirror to myself. If I don't like someone, it's either they're triggering something in me that I don't like, or they're triggering something in me that I need to heal, or they're just not resonating at the same vibrational frequency, and that's okay. But when you keep people around you that don't resonate at the same vibrational frequency, then you have to lower your vibrational frequency to them. And so, like, we all have that electromagnetic field around us. I feel like I tend to integrate science and spirituality because I think they're one and the same. And I also think
exactly. I'm like, they're the same thing, actually.
They're the same. They are actually two peas in a pod, baby. But we've been taught that they're so separate in order to really exemplify to us, like, everything needs to be external. But it's not. Everything is internal, right? Because, like, we're talking right now, but, like, you could be fighting your own internal demons right now, and I could be fighting my own internal demons right now, and we would never know it, you know, unless we externally say it. And so I think the practice of really going internal and introspecting is something that's just, like, really big and super huge, and I feel like a lot of people don't do it. And I think if we integrated more of the duality and, like, divine masculine versus divine feminine, and integrating those within our own selves, because we have both of them, but we want to label us as like, okay, like I'm presenting as a woman right now and I present as this gender. But truly, I think that every single person, no matter who you are, you have aspects of divine feminine and divine masculine. And in order to integrate both of those fully is when you're actually going to experience the most peace, because integration is transmutation. And so when you can transmute the bad feelings or the uncomfortable feelings and sit in those feelings, then you can transmute those into kindness and peace and share that with the world in a positive way, rather than projecting it or deflecting it or using these negative coping mechanisms in order to deal with it, you know?
Yeah, girl, you ate with
that.
That
Was a long tangent. I'm sorry.
No, but that was like, that was incredible. Okay, there's so many things I want to say. Okay, starting from kind of the beginning of what you were saying, how these Western religions kind of require you to like repent and like deny this part of yourself that is so clearly within all of us. Like, all of us have lied. All of us have moments where we're greedy or selfish or, you know, pick your poison. That's part of the human experience. And something really just clicked at me when you were saying all of those things about how like these Western religions is full of like war and violence and control, because they're making you, well, they're encouraging you strongly to repress this part of yourself that is who you are and to look to something external. Oh my gosh, that was fire. And then because you're not integrating this part of yourself, you're not accepting this part of yourself that is innately human and natural and part of who you are. And so if you're deflecting it and then you are looking for something external, you are always going to be like in lack and needing something else. And you're not going to be integrating. And I really love the like God consciousness belief system, because we all have that within us. And if we are deflecting that innate knowing, that wisdom, that like true divinity inside of ourselves to something external, we're so much easier to control. Like, so it's no coincidence.
Yes, we're so much easier to brainwash, baby.
Yes, so it's no coincidence that this branches of religion that require you to deny parts of yourself lead to these things like war and violence and all of these things, because you're not integrating this whole part of yourself. And I really loved your tangent of like, we all have divine femininity and masculinity in us. Like, I always like to think of human beings as like disco balls. I just love disco balls in general. But like, you have all of these little parts of you, all of them. And sometimes like, if you pretend like they don't exist, let's say you like take off the mirrors to certain parts, your light literally doesn't shine as well. But if you like integrate everything and you have all of your parts and they're out in the open and you've accepted them, you like project light everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I just think it's so important. I think it's so important to accept all of the parts of yourself. Like, a part for me that like I do not like to even pretend exists is like, I can be a royal bitch sometimes.
Hey, listen, can't we all?
Mean. Yeah, right? Okay, right? Like, I'm good with my words, and I can use them to hurt people's feelings. And so for a long time,
it's that Mercury and Aries.
Yes, I was gonna say, I was like, I hope we talk about like zodiacs and things like that, because you're big.
I cannot not talk about zodiacs, sorry, because there's a lot going on right now too, but we can get into that later.
And I remember like the first day we met, we're like birth charting it up. We're like just talking about everything.
I was like, so where's your 12th house at? You're like, when's your Saturn return? And I was like, oh, I think that's actually coming up. So shit.
Yeah. I mean, Saturn return. I'm reading a whole book about it right now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would love to read that.
It's intense. It's called Almost 30. It's also a podcast.
Okay.
It's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Circling back to like accepting all of the parts of yourself, if there's any part of yourself that you are actively like denying, repressing, you're shoving it away, not giving it the light of day, it will actually kind of run your life until you sit with it and accept it and integrate it into who you are. So for the people that, I mean, there's a lot of people that avoid introspection because it's not fun. It's scary.
Well, it's uncomfy.
It's so much easier to look at somebody else and say like, you're the problem. You're the reason why blah, blah, blah. You know, so for people that are just getting started on like a shadow work integration journey, what did yours look like? Like, how did you start accepting these parts of you and recognizing them?
I felt like a lot of people in my life, I had like a really large ego death, I would say, probably in college. I had like my first boyfriend, and naturally first boyfriends, I feel like, or any first relationship is really intense for you, because I was never a relationship person. I've always pretty much been hyper independent in a lot of ways, because if I'm hyper independent of myself, I don't lack the control because placing that effort and energy, and trust in someone else can be hard. So my first relationship was really interesting because I felt like it taught me a lot, one, about myself. But I also think that you can only do so much healing by yourself, because I think that you know your own triggers at some point, right? You know the things that hurt you, the things that you don't like, the things that you like, so you can avoid the things that make you uncomfortable. And I think when you become in a union with someone or a connection with someone in any capacity, you're allowing them the capacity to hurt you in a plethora of ways, because they don't know your triggers. They don't know your things that make you uncomfortable, because you have to learn them over time, right? And so I broke up with him because I was just no longer in love with him. And the hard part of that was our friend group was very much intertwined, intercorrelated, very entangled, and it became very messy very quickly. And now I feel like I look back on those days and I was like, dang, I was so young. I was so naive, but it's like hindsight's always 20/20, right? You're learning as you go. We all are. And so I broke up with him, and it became this whole like drama filled ordeal for like weeks and weeks, where I had to like move out even. And I think once I moved out, it really made things clearer for me, that I was like, hey, I could have handled a lot of those situations way better. Like, I could have been a better person. I could have been more mature about it. I could have spoken my truth before the truth bubbled out in like a volcano form, you know? And I think it really made me introspect, because I had lost all of my friend group that I was really close with for a couple years. And so had to basically climb out of that like rock bottom of like, damn, that shit sucked. But you know what? I don't have the will to not keep going forward. That is very something about me. I have a lot of Aries placements. So I'm very determined to get shit done, and also to continue on my healing journey, because I was like, shit, I've made it this far. We can continue making it farther. So once I moved out, I think that's really when I had this like epiphany of like, you know what? I'm going to attract whatever I give to myself. And so I think when that clicked in my head, I started journaling more. I started going outside more. I started reading a lot more spiritual books. I started really focusing on integrating mind, body, soul, and spirit, of knowing myself in all of those ways. And then another toxic relationship came, right? And through that one, I feel like I learned a lot of like, okay, he came out of the blue. It was really, really like random of how we met. And it was kind of like a trauma bond, like first night trauma bond. And then it kind of continued like that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not meant to feel this restrained in my being 24/7, because like I am a being with my own free will, and I'm actively choosing to stay in something that is no longer allowing me to feel safe, that's no longer allowing me to feel protected, that's no longer allowing me to feel who I am deep down, which is a loving and kind and compassionate and intelligent human. Like, it was just taking me so much out of my name and out of my character, that I was like, if all of my siblings and all of my friends don't like you, then I need to really introspect and reflect on why I chose you, why you vibrated at my frequency. And I was like, hey, we should stay in a relationship, you know? And then that one devastated me, because a trauma bond relationship, just like that one is different, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like any like really intense, like, would you consider it toxic, the relationship?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Super,
any like
super narcissistic, like,
yes. Okay. I have that.
controlling.
Yeah. I feel like that type of loss and grief is so complicated, because like I was in a
because of the
narcissistic.
hormones.
Yeah.
You're just going.
You're addicted to the roller coaster of highs and lows, and like absolute terrible behavior to like overcompensating. It's this like cycle. And so I know I was in a like emotionally abusive narcissistic relationship with this terrible human being when I was like 19. I didn't know any better. Like, I was 19. And so I remember no one in my family supported it. None of my friends supported it. And I was like so entrenched in the manipulation, in thinking that this person was like the only person for me, really believing the stuff like I was gaslit, believing the lies that they told me about my own self. And it took me not even like, I remember we broke up, and then even weeks later, I was still like just devastated. And then like months had passed, and I was like, oh my God, that was really bad.
Like, it took
Yeah.
me being completely out of it for a while to even recognize
Same.
how harmful the behavior was. When I was in it, I had no idea, which is wild because I'm such like an introspective person.
Yes.
But like,
Same.
it can be so like, you can have such blinders on when you're in a like entrenched relationship that is, you know, manipulative or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
how did you heal from that dynamic? 'Cause that's really intense.
Yeah. So that basically ended right before COVID hit. And so COVID was really, that was a time, listen, I love being inside. I love being inside my safe space. I love doing my tarot. I love doing my sage. I love doing art. I love creating. So like, honestly, COVID was the best time of my life.
I
was
really
like, yeah, bitch, keep me home.
I do look back on quarantine like so fondly. Like, I was just like with my
Yes.
friends. We didn't go
Yes.
anywhere. Like, it was
We're just
really actually a
vibing.
nice time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that some people, like, it wasn't, because like for the extroverts, like, yeah, they need to see people or whatever. But I feel like in a lot of ways, it allowed me to see like where my relationships, my friendships were no longer coexisting with the person that I wanted to be. And I think continuing to try and have relationships with people through so much space and distance was also really hard for a lot of people too. And I think when you place that effort and that emphasis, you really truly see when you're going through a hard time who's really there for you and who is really in your corner for various things, you know? I think that's with any relationship, any friendship. Like, if you can't trust them to be there during your hardest times when you're fighting your goddamn demons, like, they don't deserve to be in your life. Because truly, I think that a lot of people tend to overgive in a lot of friendships and a lot of relationships to try and feel valid in themselves. Of like, if I do more, if I speak more, if I'm there more, it will ultimately become better. And that's what I felt like happened with Jerome. I was like, hey, if I just keep doing more, if I just like keep being nicer, if I just keep being kinder, if I just keep giving more of my energy and my effort and my kindness, then it'll get better at some point, right? But no, it didn't, baby. It didn't get better.
Yeah.
But it got better eventually because I chose myself finally. I stopped choosing other people and I chose myself. And I said, you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to work on my body. I'm going to work on my mind. I'm going to work on my soul. So I started integrating meditation, but outside, like in the grass, like grounding myself.
Nice.
I started doing yoga outside every day because I was like, you know what? I have the time. I started focusing on like my integration of divine feminine, divine masculine. I started doing my makeup every day. I was like, this is a form of creativity. Why don't I do it? Even if I'm not going to see anyone, why don't I make myself feel good about myself? Just being myself, you know, and not needing that external validation. My incense is like, oh, bitch, queen, pop off. And I feel like I focused a lot on reading, and I feel like I focused a lot on anime and like guilty pleasures, right? But I also think that anime teaches people so much, and that's like a complete tangent because I could talk about anime for
I'm like, I almost don't want to get you started on anime because I know this one. The next hour and a half, I'm gonna be like, okay.
It's gonna be like the longest podcast of your life because I'm going through like the entire plot line of Naruto. It's fine. I'm like, so Itachi is a baddie.
Oh my god, I can't. Okay, I wanna talk a little bit about how you said like a lot of people tend to overgive and thinking that if I'm just, you know, fill in the blank enough, then you'll treat me better or I'll feel good about myself. What helped you overcome that cycle? Because that is like so painfully relatable. It's like, if I just give more, then I'll be enough. I'll be treated better. Yeah. How did you
honestly
curb that?
I still think I struggle with it sometimes because I am not perfect. I feel like I tend to overgive in a lot of capacities because I never want people in my life to feel lonely or like the hard emotions that I've had to feel in this lifetime by myself, and really bring myself out of the trenches in so many capacities. I've always been such a huge advocate of like human rights and people rights and just freedom of speech and free will in so many capacities. And I think that I really had to introspect in a lot of ways. And I started journaling a lot and I started doing a lot of meditation. And I think when I started doing that, I realized I can be my own peace. I don't have to be everybody else's. And I think once I start becoming my own peace is going to come to me through people as well.
Yes.
And I think that's hard because you have to learn the lessons of how to be very decisive of who you keep in your life, because it's like, okay, am I overgiving in this relationship or in this friendship? Am I getting reciprocity in all aspects. And now I'm not saying reciprocity has to be I give 100%, you give 100%, but you give your all as much as you have to give, even when you're sad, even when you're down, even when you're fighting for your life, even when you're going through things, but you still know as a person that you have the capacity to give to yourself and also give to others what you give to yourself. Because I am a hard and firm believer of the love that you give to yourself is the love that you're going to receive from others, because you're vibrating at that frequency. You're giving yourself what you deserve. And so when I started taking care of my body, when I started taking care of my mind and my soul, and pushing out and cutting off and blocking people that were not benefiting me, that were giving me anxiety or like really triggering a lot of my PTSD or my like past relationships or my past friendships, I was like, okay, I wish you the best, but I release you with grace and compassion and kindness. And I hope you learn your lessons, because I'm tired of being yours.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that can be a really strong act of love in itself, is releasing somebody with that like good intent and be like, I respect you, I wish you the best, and also you no longer have access to me because that is what is best for me, and ultimately that's what's best for you and everybody, because we're all like inextricably connected. We're all connected, you know?
Okay, so have you heard of quantum entanglement?
No, but I feel like I have heard of the idea. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna explain it to you, because I feel like anyone watching this that is my friend is probably like, Morgan never shut the fuck up.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
Okay, so in physics, I'm gonna try and like dole it down so like people can actually understand it.
Yes.
In physics, it basically says that group A particles and group B particles are intertwined inextricably, like you had just said. So whatever group A particles does affects the outcome and the reality of group B particles. So if you think about it, if I'm group A and you're group B and we're in a union or we're in a connection or we're in friendship, whatever I do is going to affect you, and vice versa. So when you're not giving equally, it's affecting both of you. Or when you're not receiving equally, it's affecting both of you. So I think from that aspect of things, it's just very interesting, because if you think that everything's entangled in so many capacities and everything that's brought into your reality in your life that you are viewing at that current period of time, you can truly control your own reality, because you're choosing to put your focus wherever your focus is, right? So if you're choosing to be like, oh, I'm grateful that I have a bed to sleep in, or I'm grateful that I have the friendships and the connections that I have, it allows you to be more grateful in one, your internal reality, but also your external reality. And allows you to entangle yourself with a higher vibrational frequency, and understanding that like, hey, if I'm doing bad towards myself, how do I think that's affecting group B particles, group B atoms?
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I feel like sometimes people don't have the internal drive to take care of themselves. But if you think about it in a way of like how I'm treating and behaving and acting towards myself ultimately does affect other people as well. Like if you can't muster up the motivation to start doing things for yourself, you can even think of like, how is this going to affect other people? And yeah,
Absolutely.
that's such a strong like belief that I hold too, is like the relationship that you have with yourself. I mean, it mirrors to every relationship that you have, and also like your vibration controls your reality. Like you can, you know, bitch and complain, and everything you're going to see is going to confirm that, or you can say, actually, I'm really grateful for what I have, and yada yada, and everything is love, blah blah blah, and then you look around and it's all there. You know what I mean? And it's so interesting, because our mindset and our thoughts and our narratives control so much of our lives. And what's really cool is like, sure, like growing up, I didn't know that, and so my narratives were like running my life in a really bad way. But now that I've kind of cracked the code a little bit, I'm like, wait a minute, like you can actually like be as like positively like delusional in your favor.
Delulu is literally the Solulu, like in so many capacities.
That's the name of the episode.
No, literally,
is the Solulu. I can't.
The way we need to do that. I think
actually, I fear, the episode's named itself. But like you can hack your thoughts and your beliefs in your favor, and then your reality will literally like follow suit with what you think and believe. It's so cool.
Yes,
it's so cool.
I agree.
I love it.
And I think that from like the universal standpoint, there's like a lot of laws that I feel like a lot of practitioners utilize, saying like law of attraction. So like law of attraction is basically like you attract what you are. So you attract what you give, you attract what you receive. And I think it's very interesting to think of life in that capacity as well, because I think duality is like a huge aspect of my life, because I want to be grounded enough to understand that I'm still like in this physical reality, but I also want to be open-minded enough to understand that there's so much more going on in so many plethoras of ways. Honestly, integration of like your divine feminine, your divine masculine, I think is something that also really helped me along the way of like realizing that I didn't have to be this one way. I gave myself the freedom and the free will to take control over yearning and learning the knowledge between what the difference between those two are and how to integrate them within my life, because they both have a purpose. They both serve purposes. And so like your divine masculine is going to be more towards pushing you to be determined to get shit done, right? Whereas your divine feminine is going to be holding the space for you to get shit done. It's going to be nurturing that space for you to get shit done. And so I think when you're too heavily in your toxic masculinity or in your toxic femininity, it becomes where people aren't introspecting. They're thinking it's more external than it is internal. I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I like to people watch and see like how people integrate themselves into conversations and integrate themselves into life, because, and I also think it's really good thing to take a look, take accountability of who you keep in your life. And like you were saying, like if you bitch and complain all the time, if you're keeping people that bitch and complain all the time in your life, then you're going to start to be a bitcher and a complainer. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily you have to be all love and light 24/7, 365, because I also think that's a toxic reality and a toxic belief system. Because I think you have to feel those things. You can't feel the highs without feeling the lows. And you can't see the light without being in the darkness, because you wouldn't know what it is. It wouldn't exist, right? And so I think of a lot of things as a spiral and as a cycle of like, even the emotional wheel, right? You can feel sad, but then you're going to come back down and feel happy and joy and peace at some time. You just have to move through the emotions in order to get through. So I don't even know where I was going with that, but
I was loving it. I was loving it. Okay, I think we're gonna hard pivot to witchcraft.
Okay, that's my favorite topic. I'm like, would you like to see my altars?
No, wait. Okay, I actually have like a question prepped. It's like, how? Because I'm into witchcraft and all of that stuff. I'm relatively like new to a lot of the physical aspects of practicing. So I had written down here, how do you make an altar? First of all, like for the people that are like, what are you guys talking about? What is an altar? Why do you use it? And how do you practice it?
Okay, so I would say I probably got into altars like 4 or 5 years ago. Out of college, I would say. Altars are basically forms of devotion to one yourself, but also devotion to a deity of some sort. So like, for example, I have the goddess Kali, and then I have an altar for Hades, because like in a lot of aspects, I think of Hades as transformation and duality. He integrates his shadow so well. And I think a lot of the gods and goddesses get this like reputation of their narrative or that like belief system, like Medusa, right? I think that I believe in so many gods and goddesses, but I also believe in like angels and archangels and just like so many spiritual belief systems. And so I think you can make an altar for anything that you truly believe in. Like you could make an altar for self-love, just for yourself. What really helps an altar is you're placing intention into what you're placing on that altar, right? So it's kind of like, if you want to give it like a negative terminology or a condensed title, it would be like a shrine to something.
Okay.
Like in Japanese cultures or Japanese religions, they basically hold that temple space as a shrine for their god that they're praying to, and they'll leave different offerings. That's what I was going for. You leave certain offerings for that said person or entity or energy or being that you're trying to be more like or be more attuned with. And so, for example, with my Hades altar, he's coming through a lot right now, I guess. He has a lot of dark stones, but because a lot of dark stones are protective, he is very highly intuitive. He's also very integrated in the shadow realm and in like traversing both realms. I also have an altar for Hecate, which is basically the goddess of crossroads. So what I place on her altar, I place keys because she's unlocking doors to new crossroads or to new pathways. And I set an intention with everything that I place on the altar. I am also a Libra moon, so everything has to look good. So I would say like I'm very much color oriented with my personal altars, but that's kind of how my brain works too. And then I'm also very like, I'll change them every now and then and really be like, I don't think this is resonating with you anymore. Like you can place food and be like, hey, I'm going to eat this orange and I'm going to give the rest of it to you, and set the intention that this is going to bring me prosperity and abundance. Or like when I light any candles, by the way, I just got a new match tattoo and I'm just obsessed with it. But I love it because I light my matches with this hand. Because this side is your masculine side and this side is your feminine side. So left is feminine, right is masculine, right is going to be doing. So like the act of initiating. And so when I initiate the intention, I'm sparking the match, right? Cool. And so I'm placing the intention of protection, or I'm placing the intention of clarity, or I'm placing the intention of love and kindness and compassion. Really whatever I'm resonating with in that moment. Sometimes I'll pull some tarot cards because I have specific decks for specific altars as well.
Wow.
I'm actually just batshit crazy.
Fine line. It's a fine line.
Fine line. I'm teetering. But I think it's really just a beautiful way to like express yourself too. I think it's a creative way to be creative, you know?
Yes.
And you don't necessarily have to use it for like a god or a goddess or like an angel. Like you can literally use it for yourself. Be like, okay, what do I like? You know, what should I place on my altar? You know, and allow that to be an intentional of like, hey, I'm placing this stone because I really like it and I think it's pretty. Or I'm lighting this candle with the intention of glamour magic to make me be the badass bitch that I am. Like,
yeah. And I love that everything is really what it comes down to is intention, because that in itself is so powerful. I think we could sit here and be like, well, you actually need a salt rim around anything that you're doing because, you know, whatever, like the logistics of it. But like, I think the reality is, like, for my experience with any type of like energetic work like spell casting, intention setting, like it all comes to the intention that you have behind the practice.
Absolutely.
And so being really clear on that, you can kind of make anything like a spell or a ritual, because if you're like, when I'm getting on my yoga mat today, my intention is to have a clear mind. And like, as you're doing your yoga, you can like work that intention into your life. And so, yes, you can use altars, you can light a candle, but it's like anything, if you start with the intention, like that is where I think the true power is. And so it's like, you don't need all these, I mean, you can absolutely have items and altars and all these things, but like, you don't really need it, because what matters most, at least in my experience, is like the intention behind what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, I'll even drink coffee because, okay, this will also get really witchy woo woo, but in any drink, really, there's water in any drink, right? In liquid form, there's going to be some form of water, and water holds memory. I want everyone to look up the science behind that, because water holds so much memory. Okay. So that can also pivot me to how the moon and the planets affect us, because they're affecting our electromagnetic pole, and like 70% of our bodies are made of electrolytes and water, right? And our entire body system, from every aspect, from like a nursing standpoint, right, is integrating electrolytes and fluid throughout our body and how they move through cells and structures. And so when you talk kinder to yourself, you are actually lighting up those cells in your body and the water in your body to recreate its cellular structure. So, and its atomic structure, really. They actually have done a lot of science on that as well, like with that in music, because vibrational frequency can attune your body to a certain frequency, which leads to different healing patterns. And so when I'm drinking coffee or anything, I do a little like ritual of like, I'll do to the right for protection and like to the left for openness, abundance, and clarity. But I speak into it and I'm like, hey, I love you. I'm grateful. Thank you so much for bringing me good health, good wealth, and a good day today. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I feel like my type of like witchcraft, as I would pertain to this conversation, I would say is very intentional living, intentional witchcraft, and also very like day-to-day witchcraft, because I feel like people get overwhelmed with it because they think that you have to do something every single day. But truly, some of my most spiritual moments have been when I haven't been practicing. when I've truly just been sitting in myself and being like, is this serving me? And like sometimes I don't have the emotional or the spiritual capacity to do tarot cards, so I'll just sit there and see what goes through my mind, or I'll just focus on self-care that day. And I think giving yourself the grace and compassion that you tend to give to others is something that I've learned has helped me a lot, because I'm like, I am so good at letting other people heal. I'm so good at allowing other people the compassion and the understanding of their mistakes or their regrets or things that they're going through and they're having a hard time, and that's why they can't be there to support me as best as they can, right? But then when it comes back to myself, I truly think that we are all our own worst enemies to an extent, because it's like we belittle ourselves in so many aspects, and we think that we have to do or be this entity for every second of every day, and we lack the graciousness to give ourselves the compassion and kindness to just live. Like, we're all experiencing this particular reality for the first time, right? Like, this is where our consciousness is choosing to be right now. And so why do we choose to create a reality that's focused on making our realities harder when we could make it easier by setting the intention that, like, hey, today I'm going to go for my path of least resistance. There's a really great YouTuber and actual practitioner called Abraham Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, period.
Yeah, quite familiar.
No, and then Joe Dispenza, he's really great for meditations.
Yes. Yeah. That's like quantum physics, craziest. Like leaping realities and dimensions. Yeah.
I feel like those two really sparked a lot in me of really knowing, like, it is an internal battle every day, but also befriending my own demons of like, hey, I know that I don't give myself as much grace and compassion, so like, let's learn why. Like, let's learn how to start integrating compassion and kindness in little small things in my life so that I can start manifesting that more for myself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like what you said about you can be your own biggest enemy is so true, because like you have all the ammunition. Like other people can get to know you and then try to like use that against you, but like you have all of your memories, your fears, your doubts, your insecurities. Like you have all the ammo. But at the same time, I think it's like a shift in perspective of you can be your biggest critic or like your biggest cheerleader, because you know your desires, what you want, what you like. And so you can use, and it's really just like shifting your perception and what you're choosing to give your energy to, and knowing like, okay, maybe I'm really harsh on myself, but I know how I like to receive words of affirmation, and I know how I like to spend my time. So like I am more like adequately equipped to give myself what I need, what I want to make me feel better than anybody else. Like that is such a huge belief that I have. Is like you are your own greatest caretaker, because other people can get to know you, and it always feels great when other people are pouring into you and giving into you and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
But they're going to do it well because you're going to tell them what you like and what you dislike and how you like to receive.
Exactly.
And so like you don't even have to have that conversation with yourself. You're like, I already know these things. So it's like you can really take the reins of your life back when you shift from that critical, beating yourself up energy to, wait, actually, I know what I need. I can build myself up. Like that is in your control and your capacity. And I think that's just like such a huge shift going from bully to cheerleader. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's also really hard to do that sometimes too, because like if you were raised by generational trauma, and like everyone is, in different capacities, like truly, like who doesn't have trauma at this point?
Right. Yeah.
I think that the nature versus nurture aspect of it becomes like, if you're raised to consistently look at the negatives, it's really hard to break those patterns. Yeah. It's really hard to let go of those things. And I also think that a lot of people, and like, I think you and I have probably heard this a million times, but like healing is so not linear, but it is like, you're still growing, like climbing a mountain, right? Like you're still going to get there at some point, because the mountain's this big, but you're going to go through those trenches, but you're still going to be increasing in your multitudes and your capacities, right? So I think that overall there's so many things that I think go into that for a person. But I think there's a lot of people right now that are realizing that they need to do that in order to prosper and in order to make a better more kind and like just and peaceful realm for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think you have to be
absolutely.
pushed. I think you have to be pushed in order to get to there too. Like sometimes you have to reach that breaking point to really learn about yourself, of your own resilience, and also your own mental and emotional fortitude for yourself. That's a make or break it moment, because you either will continue the cycle or you will break it.
Yeah. And I always like to think of like when you hit like a rock bottom, like when like everything goes wrong, like I liked what you said, like it's kind of a make or break moment because it's like you can either like keep bottoming out basically and just being
Yeah,
like, this is terrible, I can't get up, I can't do this. Or I think there's so much to be learned from a rock
yeah,
bottom moment, like from really just having things stripped away. Like it can really accelerate like your consciousness and it can teach you like, okay, I don't like to be here. How did I get
yeah,
here? Let me make sure I don't make the same decisions that led me here. And it can really be like a
yeah,
catalyst for change. But I think it's also kind of like what you're saying is like if you don't have the tools or the knowledge from people in your life, like you don't know any better, so you can't do any better. Um
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I feel like we could keep talking for 6 more hours.
No,
So
no, literally same.
I'm I'm going to shift to the checkout questions. Okay. So these are questions
Okay,
that I
yay.
ask. These are questions I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
And the first one is, what is something that people often get wrong about you?
Okay, so I know we didn't talk about astrology very much, but I have a lot of Aries placements and I have a lot of cardinal signs, and cardinal signs start off the element of that
Mm,
zodiac. So like
mhm,
Aries starts off fire, Capricorn starts off earth, Libra starts off air, and then Cancer starts off water.
mm.
And my entire chart is basically cardinal signs. So like I am very much initiation, right? So I think a lot of people in a lot of aspects of my life and throughout my years of my life tend to mistake my passion and my drive and my intensity for anger, or
Mm,
they interpret it in a very like negative or harmful way,
mhm,
rather than taking it as I'm very passionate about this, or I'm
mhm.
just very intense because I know a lot about this topic. That could be like the TISM spectrum or my ADHD. But I
Like who
would
knows
say,
which like
who knows which side I get all of it. But I would say that's something that a lot of people mistake. And then I would also say a lot of people don't really see my unmasked self. And I've been learning to try and unmask myself, because I think that's been something, one of my big cycles, and most recently, of like really learning of like who I am and who I want to be and who I want to portray myself as. And it's not my responsibility of how people perceive me. And that's a big lesson too. And I think that's something like people will misinterpret me no matter what, because that's their own reality to an extent, right? So I think overall, mistaking my passion and my intensity for anger, or me being upset in some form or capacity, is a big
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. What is something that you wish you could tell your younger self?
one. We've kind of talked about this. I wish I could tell my younger self that you are always going to be safe and you are always going to be
Mm.
protected, because you will always be your greatest protector.
Oh,
And
I
also
like
that I
that.
don't need to earn love by overgiving, or earn love
Mhm.
by diminishing myself, or earn love
Mhm.
by over providing or
Mhm.
over extending all of
Yeah.
my energy for other people.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't need
So
to earn love. Oh my gosh, that should be like a poster. I love that. Oh.
you shouldn't. You're already lovable as you are, because
Mhm.
you love parts of yourself, you know? Even if you don't love all of yourself, you're still lovable because you can love parts of yourself. And I think that you don't realize how you're impacting people truly every single day. Like, you interact with a plethora of people every single day, and you don't realize what your smile or what your eyes or what your physical movements could mean to somebody else. And I think as like a practitioner myself, I notice that a lot more now via like the synchronicities, and also just things coming back of like year long
Yes.
people I haven't seen for years. And all of a sudden they're like, I
Mhm.
wanted you to know that you changed the trajectory of my life
Yes.
without you even trying. So yeah.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Like, we have no idea the amount of impact we have on other people. A lot of it goes
Hmm.
unspoken. And then sometimes, like, you get years later, someone tells you something and you're like, what? Like, I had no idea. So it's just so cool to think about, like, you simply just existing. Like,
Yeah.
again, that quantum, what was it called? The quantum
Entanglement.
the quantum entanglement. That's just like
Yes.
further proof it. I'm not going to
Yes.
shut up about that
Yes.
now. I'm going to be like,
Okay, look it up and then look up red string theory because I feel like they're
yes.
very similar.
I've heard of red string theory for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll like find things and link them in the show notes too, so people, if they're like,
Ooh, yeah, that
you
would be
know,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, cool. Okay, if you could make a law that everyone has to follow, what would it be and why?
You hit on this, I think, earlier, and I was like, dang, you kind of took that from my mind. But I think I know a law that I would want is to really have mandatory emotional literacy, emotional intelligence, and mandatory inclusive spiritual, religious, mind, body, soul, spirit integration practices of classes in school starting from a young age. And I also think movement of our bodies should necessarily be a mandatory thing as well, because I think that when you truly learn to quiet your body, you can quiet your mind, and vice versa. And I think learning like how many ways you can meditate, and meditate is not like, you don't have to like sit in one position and be like, I'm completely still, I can't move type thing. Like, you can meditate while you're drawing, you can meditate while you're taking a bath. It's the intention that you set, right? So I think having a mandatory law of knowledge and learning in those capacities would be so influential in so many ways.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, how can we start this like right now? How can we, we're gonna go to schools. Yeah, that would just be so much better for everybody.
It really would.
Yeah. Okay. Best
more tools in your toolbox.
Exactly. Like, we might as well give people the resources.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm glad we agree. Best mental health advice you have to share.
I think the best mental health advice that I can potentially give is truly learning yourself. Learning what makes you happy. Learn what makes you sad. Learn your triggers. Learn your patterns. Learn your cycles. Learn more about yourself, because the more you learn about yourself, the happier you're going to be and the easier life is going to become. It's going to become that more internal cycle like we've talked about for this show, you know? And I think that the more you yearn to learn, I think the stronger your overall capacity is in so many ways. Like, because in your determination to heal, I think becomes heightened as well.
Yeah, I love the wording of yearn to learn. That is so good. I'm like, another poster, another t-shirt, like and yearning to learn about yourself, like that.
Yes,
that is a concept. That's
it is.
That's great,
because I feel like people yearn to learn about everything outside of them, right? And that's great. I think yearning to learn in general is such a beautiful concept, and learning things is amazing. I love learning. But I think that learning yourself is one of those things that can be really hard, because then you have to learn your shadow. Then you have to learn how to integrate both of those things. You have to learn where you're not so good of a human, and like where your mistakes lie, and also where other people build you up or support you more, and maybe what you want to be like in the future, and how you can change yourself going forward to be more of the best version, the most divine timeline of yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Last piece is plug yourself. How can we support you? Where can we find you?
Okay, so my Instagram is Morgan Skillington, I think.
Yeah,
I'm probably gonna. Okay, slick. I am probably gonna start like an LLC soon, because I really want to start. I just was in school for so long, you know, fighting my demons. But I want to write a book. I've been writing a poetry book, so I'm going to probably release that within the next couple of years. I'm going to start doing readings, like tarot, psychic, intuitive, mediumship readings, because I already do them for so many people, and I need to start energetically receiving for that as well. But like, if you want me to do some spells for you, I can do some spells. You can just message me on Instagram, truly, and be like, hey, Morgs, I need this. I would like a 3-card pull.
Yeah, cool.
And I can help you out. Yeah.
Cool. Oh my gosh, I love that. The witchy LLC time. Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, Morgan, well, thank you so much for taking the time and energy to be on the show. This was so fire. I
Absolutely.
loved your streams of consciousness. I just really,
Thank you.
yes.
My ADHD unmedicated streams.
No, but it's like mine too, and so we're following.
Yeah.
We're following.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. And until next time, may you be well.